Good morning. Our hand today is going to be Ace-5 of clubs. So in this hand, I'm in mid position and I raise the 3 big blinds and I get a player that calls, and it's just 2 of us. So my pre-flop raising range for mid position looks something like this. Villain I gave a pretty good range at 36.2. He's playing 42% of hands, 22% pre-flop raise. He really hasn't 3-bet 1 out of 23. Note we do have only 55 hands. When we look at his actual stat play, it looks like he's raising first in about 50% of the time. His pre-flop, pre-flop calls about 50% of the time. We don't have a huge selection, but I do get the sense based on these stats that he's playing pretty loose. You're pretty loose passive, not necessarily 3-betting or anything. And even post flop, you could see 0 out of 1, 0 out of 2 hasn't folded to c-bet. Turn he has folded, but again, only one time when he's in position, one time when he's out of position. So I'm just going to start with a very wide range. And we see a flop of 8-7-4, so I've got the gut shot with backdoor flush draw. I went ahead and fired a bet. I know that this doesn't necessarily help my range. I think both of us have, trip 7s, trip 8s, but I think both of us should have, 9, 10, maybe 8. So I bet half pot he calls. Turn improved me, and this is kind of what I was thinking. If I c-bet, if I pick up a club, if I pick up a I was thinking a jack, queen, king, or ace, I could bet again. 10 was a possibility of betting again because I think 8, 9 could call, but I think with the 10 that gives me opportunity of firing 2 barrels, because if he had a 9, 10, he's definitely going to be calling that with the pair, and then on the river he's going to be calling again. But if he has 8, 9, or maybe even 7, 9, he'll call the turn, but I don't think he'll call the river, or at least I would like to think most players don't call the river. So I fired c-bet again. He calls. River was an 8. I think that was a bad card for me. I think it hits a lot of the 8s that are calling, and now I don't think I'm ever going to get him to fold, so I just checked. He bet 10, and then I folded it, so we're not going to be able to see his hand. What I wanted to see was, what does GTO say? So GTO finished running. It was a long one. And out of position has me betting about 36% of the time. When you look at like Ace-5, it looks kind of like it's a mixed strategy. Ace-3, Ace-4, so bottom pair looks like a check. I don't know if I'd have the discipline to check this. I don't know if I'd have the discipline to check aces, kings, and queens. I think I've just been so ingrained to just c-bet that I think this is a board where I would have a hard time just checking. But GTO is suggesting I should. I think aces were not vulnerable, kings were not vulnerable. Queens, jacks, and 10s, we start getting into the vulnerability. I think that's why we bet. Ace-4. I'm not sure why we do that. So let's check. Let's check raise frequencies. 8%. Some of our Ace-5s are check raising. Interesting. Our straights are check raising. The times we check with 4s, we're check raising most of them. Same thing with 7s and 8s. Okay, no big surprise. But we're not check raising with 7-8 with 2 pair. We're just check calling with that hand. Ace-6, we get check raise, but we're not going to have a huge number of those. Alright, so like Ace-4 is just a check call. Ace-7's a check call, but Ace-8's a bet. So I guess we're playing it a little bit safe with those types of hands. So I think my hand could be a bet or a check. I chose to bet. I think that's okay. Villain calls. We'll assume that he plays a GTO. Queen of Club comes out, and now we bet 36% now. We are firing 79% here. And we are betting, again, most of our range are ace 5, ace 6. I think that's pretty standard. So I made this bet. I'm confident I made this bet appropriately. 5s and 6s are checks, and I think I probably would check those hands. Let's see if I check and he bets. We're calling with those hands. Okay, I think I probably would have called with those hands with the gut shot. Because again, I think he could have called with like a 9-10. He could be betting since I've checked behind. His probe stats, again, doesn't really have many because we've got small number of hands. So, turn probe 0. River probe, I have 1 out of 1. But it doesn't look like, based on these 55 hands, that he's not necessarily raising c-bets or raising turn barrels or anything. King, queen calls, trip queens, check raise if we have we've got a very small number of hands like that. So, I do think this fits. This queen fits our range, definitely should improve our fold equity. I think this is a solid card to barrel it on. So I did. He calls. And then we're down to 35.2%. That's our bet. Checking 65%. So what hands are we betting? Well, we had ace 5. So ace 5 sometimes we're betting. Definitely not with the clubs. So I'm glad that I think I'm playing good with that. Ace 6, again, checking. I would bet 5s and 6s if we had them. We would be checking. 8s, we're betting quads. Quads we're betting. Okay. Kings, queens, we're betting all of these for value. I don't think we're doing a whole lot of check raising. If we check, we're raising 12.9%. So we're doing that with 7s, with 8 7s, 7 6, 6 5 straight, 4s. Okay, so we're kind of checking those middle hands that are down there, but probably because we kind of block all of those. It's possible that he could be bluffing, but also possible that he had called with like a queen and somehow connected in some way. So fortunately, I don't think we don't have a huge number of combos that we are planning to check raise. Let's check the calls again. We would be calling if we bet ace 5, ace 6. We're just bluff catching with these. We're bluff catching. So if we bet first and he raises, we're re-raising about full house plus. These are the queens full. Okay, but then if we're just calling, the other stuff, the 7s and the 4. So if we have queens full, we're raising. If we've got quads, we're raising. Some of our 3 of a kind, we're raising ace 8s, 10 8s. Not a huge number. Not a huge number of hands. We're calling with straights, 3 of a kinds, top pair, over pair, just the king. Looks like if we bet and we get raised, we're probably just dumping the queen, and I think that's okay. I kind of look at, why would we dump kings but not like king, queen, queen, jack? And I think that's a fair question. I think it's one that is a little confusing, and it is hard to justify because, we beat a lot of the queens. So, I understand calling here with the queens, but then why dump the kings? Maybe because if we have the queens, we've got a lot of blockers. Makes it a little more likely that he probably doesn't have, a top pair type hand. With kings, we don't necessarily block anything. He could be full his full range. But then at the same time, look at the number of combos. And how often do we actually get there with kings? Not very often. So I think this is a consequence of percentages, frequencies. We're throwing that in just kind of as checker call. I'm not sure if I would necessarily fold these kings. How did we play? We actually played the check, so I think the check is okay. He bets 9.9, so he bet about a third of the pot. He's going to be betting quite a bit. And then GTO has me calling. Is that realistic? I don't know. So we have GTO has him betting top pair plus, along with some no-made hands. So 10 combos of no-made hands versus, let's see here, 32, 33, 39, 40. So 40. It's at 25%. Definitely, I mean, we are getting the odds to call. And we can demonstrate that we are getting the odds to call. So we're risking 10 to win to win 10 plus the 28.5 that we have. Oops, no, 38.5. Double check that. Yep. Yeah, so it's 28.5 plus 10. So we're risking 10 to win 48.5 basically. So I need to be right, 21% of the time. If he has 25% of his hands as a bluff, that we beat. So if you look at his bluffing ranges, we beat all of those because we have ace high hands. So definitely GTO says we're ahead. This is an easy call. Easy call. It's mathematically correct based on the bet size. But we kind of have to ask ourselves, would a player make this play? This is a 2NL game. I don't necessarily think so. I think he's betting. He probably has an 8. He probably has that 3 of a kind. So I'm going to break with GTO and say I think this is probably an exploitative fold. Even though the math says we should call, I don't think we can. I think we're behind. What if it changes? What if I'm gonna just assume if the two of clubs comes, yeah, we're gonna be betting ace 5 clubs, definitely. If we had checked and he bets again, I think we're kind of in the same situation. We can call with middle pair, weak pair, and again, should we? With the ace 8, yeah. With 7-6, probably we're gonna probably see ourselves beat with that. With the 8s, we're probably beating the 7s that he has. So I think that's reasonable. What if it was like a 2 of diamonds? We're still betting quite a bit. I do think since I missed ace 5, I'm just gonna check. I have some showdown value hand here, so if I check and he bets now, we could call with the ace 5. Ace 5 of clubs GTO has this folding. I think this is also another one that if we don't have a pair, I don't think we really should be calling, because I don't think enough of these players at 2NL are going to be betting as a bluff. GTO might suggest that we should be calling, but again, that's just mathematical. What happens if this was like another queen, let's say? I think that's kind of an interesting hand, because I think with a queen, if we fire it again, we might be able to get the 8 to fold. Now, we would have to check some of our hands that we're not over betting. So GTO has us checking these ace 2, ace 3, ace 5, ace 8. But you can see with the no mate hands, we're firing out like jack 10, jack 9, a lot of those missed straights, missed straight draws, some of these missed flush draws. We're betting pocket pair less than the top card, so jacks. Some of our middle pairs we're betting. We're being a little bit of aggressive. We do have straights and full houses, some straights and full houses that we're checking. We're going to let him bet. At this game, again, maybe he can probe the bet. We don't have a huge number of hands, so I think it would be better just to go ahead and bet our hands, see what he does. Obviously, if we bet and get raised, we're probably only calling with full houses or better. So I think that's standard. What if this was a king? King gives us a bet, and I think that's right. I think a king or an ace, I think, gives us reason to bet again. Our ace 5 hand, though, we missed the club, and I think that's kind of interesting that we're not betting the club, the busted or the missed club draw. We're betting everything else, the other suits with the ace 5 and ace 6, and I think the reason being that if we had the clubs, we block the chance that he has the clubs, whereas ace 5, ace 6 of, let's say, hearts, he could have easily called the flop with the club draw, called again because he picked up the flush draw and now check. So I kind of understand that idea. How important is it at 2NL? That's the question. I think at a 10NL game, that is definitely a possibility, especially at some of the tables that I've played at, that we have to consider that. What about ace of diamonds? Ace of diamonds, we've got our pair, we're firing them. Definitely that helps our range. We would be betting. We're going for value. So all right, so let's call this quit because we didn't get to see his hand. I folded. Kind of unfortunately we folded, but at the same time, I kind of think he probably has a 7 or an 8. I think he bet a small size just to try to get me to call, pick up 10 big blinds from me, and I think the exploited fold was the correct play here. Do I fault my aggressive play? No, not really. I think we played it okay. It was just that the 8 wasn't all that good. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, look tomorrow for another.